We greet people all the time. And a problem culturally, not just here in Brazil, but in the United States, and maybe has something to do with generations as well, and traditions, is that we take for granted that the person we speak to knows everything that we want them to know, but they're only going to know it from the first two things we say, or the first 3, 4 things we say. So we have a natural inclination to think that people understand everything and everything about us, and yet, hello, that's Greg. You couldn't even hear my name and heard hello. So we have to make sure that we find ways to make an impression positive and quick. And the first thing we have to do is be able to speak clearly, of course, but recognize that there's differences in culture in terms of how we make those encounters meaningful and memorable. Now, I'm Greg Burke, Gregory. People call me all sorts of things, just don't call me late for dinner. But I try to show people, in the States as well, how to communicate to make that effective move. So typically today what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to do it a little bit differently than I planned, but it'll work. I have some forms here. Let me just pass these out. And while I do this, you can take a look at it and show you a little more about myself. Quickly.
Do you want to study?
Yes, it's in the back of the book as well.
Yeah.
But I want you to be able to write on this. The book you can use as a reference point later on, because you may have things I might say or things that you want to do or a question later on. Use it as a worksheet. I've been in Brazil, living here in Brazil for a little over 4 years. I speak Portuguese pretty well, but I've been here. My wife is Brazilian, and she decided to come home after 20 plus years to live. And I said, well, with my life, I'm going to take a shot and come here. So I grew up in the United States, primarily in the New York, New Jersey area. I speak very fast, extremely fast. Northeasterners specifically do have this tendency. The difference between me and many people that you may meet from the United States or from New York, New Jersey, Boston, is that I speak clearly, normally. I also speak with my hands, I can't help it. That's something else. But the point is that I had grown up in many different places in the country. I lived in 2 years in Cleveland. I have family there, Cleveland, Ohio, and in the northern part of the country bordering Canada. But New Jersey was primarily where I grew up. And then I spent 14 years, just shy of 15 years in Orlando, which we have a house there as well. But I've been in Curitiba for 4 years. And prior to me moving here, relocating, selling furniture, cars, renting the house, I made 11 trips here with tours, visiting family, my wife's in Curitiba, as well as families in Santa Catarina. So I understood the area and I understood culture. I also studied language, Spanish. I grew up in a multilingual environment, not my household, in a multicultural environment because in the Northeast and the town I grew up with, many immigrants, people from different places, and it was a great place to grow up as a kid. Because when you went out to see your friend's house to eat, you didn't know what they were talking about, but you know the food was good. So you learn culture, you learn different things about people or personalities, and sometimes those things kind of get mixed. But it's important to understand that there's differences and recognize that. Maybe not as the rule, but recognize as the difference. And those behaviors, those actions, as strange and simple as they may be, can be very powerful. So I'm going to show you some things tonight. I'm going to do this quickly, and that way if there's questions as we go through it, or at the end, we'll have time, I can respond to that. As a matter of fact, if you have questions at any point, the best thing is to stop me. And if I continue and I don't seem to respond, just say hi. And for some reason, I'll stop whatever I'm doing and just come back and focus. So I have this chart. Seems very simple. I have it divided into formal and informal conversation. This is a guide because these rules, just like in life, the rules are more critical if you break them than to follow them step by step. But there are certain things you need to understand and we need to be comfortable with so that we can have a feeling of what the flow would be like. So we have those expectations of what can happen in a conversation. So, I want to go around the room and I'll start with the first one. We're going to go by column. First column, sample sentence and sample response. Hello, Mr. Smith, and hello.
Hello.
Okay. Hello, doctor.
Hello.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Oh, good afternoon. Okay, good afternoon. It's okay. There's no script here. It's just okay. Good evening.
Good morning.
Good evening. Okay. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
And how do you do?
Very well, thank you.
Okay. Okay. These simple phrases, that's just like here, come on, where's there? Americans have a very interesting way to deal with some of these phrases. It's not quite as simple, we can analyze it. Typically, and some of this may be a review for a lot of you, but it's something I think is very important. Here in Brazil, first names are very important. We have an informal climate here, informal culture in some ways. In general, in the city here, it may be different in other places, but typically everybody goes by first name. The States, I'm Mr. Burke. I'm Gregory Burke. I'm Greg Burke. So if someone comes up to me and they don't know me, my expectation is they will call me sir or Mr. or call me Mr. Burke. If I go to a hotel and I check in, even if I say, I'm Greg Burke, I'm looking for my reservation, I expect the response to come back as, Mr. Burke, we're glad you're here, we have your key. Mr. Burke. Doctor, here there's a little bit of flexibility. But there, a doctor would be a medical, dental, orthodontist, I won't try to say it in Portuguese, I can't say the word. A PhD or doctoral level position. No lawyers. A lawyer can be a doctor if they have a PhD or a doctoral level degree. I say that because we have different levels and different types of designation for doctors, academically. So we have to approach people the way they expect to be approached in that culture. Here it's very casual. Doctor, could be a lawyer, it could be someone that's not a PhD, not even a lawyer. Someone that's here, we may view them with a certain level of esteem or affection or respect, whether they've earned it with it academically or not. So it may be okay. But there, I'm Mr. Burke, Gregory Burke. I can identify myself one way, but I'm certainly expect to be spoken to another. But then we have the informal. Let's step down to the bottom of the page. We have hey, hi.
Hey, hi.
Okay. We have how are you? How are you?
I'm good, all right.
Okay. We have how are things?
Fine.
And second column.
Pretty good.
Okay. How's it going?
Oh, okay, not bad.
Okay. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Okay. And then we have a group of these. We have what's yeah, well, that's okay, we have what's up. What's up? Good. We have what's new. What's new? We have what's happening. What are you up to? And what's going on? Now, these are all just simple phrases. These are not scripts. There's many phrases out there, and these are not necessarily spoken just in the streets and, as you call it, we would say jizya, we would say slang. It doesn't have to be bar level language. But these phrases have basically the same meaning. There's a casual, it's a hello. These can be considered all first-time encounters, although you may hear this from groups of people that know each other and don't know each other for years. It could be in a first-time meeting. The point I want to make is that the simple answers here, nothing much, not a whole lot. Nothing special and not much. Simple response could be, what? What does that mean, and what does that mean to you? If you want to just think of it in terms of Portuguese for a minute. Okay.
Nada.
Nada. Simply nada. So the point is that these types of expressions in the indirect or informal language, we can't translate from one language to the other. We have to understand the movement. And in order to understand the movement, we have to understand the culture. We have to, or the people involved in that environment. Because if we get wrapped up into trying to figure out what these meanings are just by words, when looking up in the dictionary, we're going to be lost. Because idioms are not always translatable. Sometimes they work, but most times they don't. But in these situations here, and I want to just show you one other point before we get back into the bigger part of the picture, is hey, hi, how are ya is not the way we intend to speak. It's the sound. The intent is we're still saying, how are you? But I'm from New Jersey, New York, how are you? People in Texas, other places, how are you? Or how are you? I mean, there's a whole lot going on, just like here, there's variations in dialect, as well as accent, sotaque. So the intention is not to step down and step on the language and beat it up. We're still saying, how are you? It may sound like, how are you? Because it could be the auditory, it could be something bad in the room. Or it could be in the street and that's the way they want to speak. How are things? That's pretty much simple. But how are you doing? It's how are you doing? There always was and always will be. But it may come out, it may sound like how are you doing? Because it's not always clear to hear, depending on who you're speaking to and where they're from in the country. Education doesn't matter. It could be this level of education. The intention is to still speak clearly. And as you are stepping into businesses or communicating across boundaries and countries, understand that specifically Americans and other countries, maybe other cultures may perceive things differently. That they have expectations that you're going to make mistakes. So my objective is to find out ways to prevent some of these mistakes when they're avoidable. Because that first impression is what they're going to remember for a very long time, if not forever. They're predisposed to expect that you would be making numerous errors, and they're waiting for that point. But yet, one of my native colleagues that may live down the street from me and grew up with may speak, how you doing? And no one says a word, and no one questions it. So my point is, again, to show you about culture and show you what we think on the other side. But getting back to greetings again, Mr. Smith, Mr. Burke, Miss, what's Miss, my SS?
Señorita.
Okay, unmarried or single, okay? Mrs.
Married.
Married. Ms.
We don't know.
Because you don't have that here. Ms., let me pull this
We don't
up.
know if she's married or single.
That's right, it's generic. Let's do this.
Do we need some help?
No, I think we got it. It's telling me it's gonna activate here. Come on, see? So we have,
Well,
and please forgive me with my handwriting. And we have Ms. Let's put that over here. Mr. That's easy. Doesn't matter, married in American culture, British culture, Canadians, this is standard. There's a double standard. Miss, single as I mentioned, but typically we don't use it frequently in professional situations. Mrs. is married. We try in business situations to stay away from that. So these 2 points, this marital status, single and married for women, is not appropriate to discuss in the workplace. Interviews, resumes, general conversation. So in emails, in businesses, you will probably see this commonly. Ms. It's a generic term that applies to women, so that it shields what their marital status is.
It's like trying to be politically correct.
It's more than that, yes, because the laws are very strong in the States about this. So my mother, who's turned 85 years old Saturday, she was very active at one point in the feminist movement, as well as my father in social activism. And they've been married for 63 years.
Wow.
And even to this day, if someone calls her Ms., she will correct them. She's saying, no. I believe in the cause, but I'm Mrs.
Mm-hmm.
All right? So my point is that there are people that will still use Mrs. and they choose for whatever reason that that's what they want to be called. We have to recognize and accept and respect the way they want to be addressed. So if my mother, someone speaks to her and says, oh, Ms. Burke, and she says, no, Mrs. Her expectation is the next time that you see her, you call her Mrs., not Ms. Don't overlook it, because it's very important. Now, the reason they do that is to minimize job discrimination based on gender or sex, because there's different companies that have different positions or perceived positions about hiring women. I don't want to get into all that tonight, the details, but by using this or this status could jeopardize whether one gets a job or not. So therefore, it's not included in resumes. It may be asked on an application for a job, and it's okay to do so, to answer it, if it is for demographic purposes, for research for the state or the federal government. They call the Department of Labor, which is Departamento de Entrega here, right? Impresa. Getting back to the point, so we have Mr., Ms., Mrs., and Ms. When in doubt, use Ms. Always. They will correct you if they prefer to be called something else. And make sure that you follow it going the next step. But then we have something else that's interesting. And Leonie likes the name.
I'm already laughing.
Okay. We have doctor.
We have a doctor.
Yes. Here's the situation. I have made up this name, Dr. Mauricio Fernandez. Now, there's got to be at least one in Curitiba, I don't know. It's not my imaginary friend. I understand he may exist. But I use this example for a reason, and it seems to work in a lot of my classes. To Dr. Mauricio Fernandez. Here, Dr. Mauricio. First time encounter. Hello, hola, Dr. Mauricio. In the US, Dr. Fernandez. First time meeting. Doesn't matter whether it's in a doctor's office for a consultation or just in a public place. Dr. Fernandez. But what happens if Dr. Fernandez says, that's very formal. That's too formal. Just call me Mauricio. So what do you call him the next time you see him?
Dr. Mauricio.
Wrong. No, you can't call him Dr. Mauricio. Here's the reason. If we call him Dr. Mauricio, he's offended. He could be very upset. And depending on whatever that encounter is, whatever